All right. So if you have been with us from the very beginning of this saga, some of this information might be old, but want to make sure that you all have on your radar kind of what is going on. So we are dealing with a voter registration repair list that was created by the State Board of Election. The people on this list are people whose voter files are missing either a driver's license number or the last four digits of their social security number. So these are people who might have been voting for a really long time, who might have moved counties or changed their names or had some sort of administrative record-keeping problem that means that these numbers were not included with their voter file. None of these voters did anything wrong. All of this is happening because of administrative decisions, but now we are dealing with the Republican State Board of Elections deciding that these folks no longer have a correct or complete voter file. And this didn't happen just out of the blue. This whole process started back in summer of 2024. This was when the Republican National Committee started filing multiple lawsuits all over the country, claiming that these numbers had to be included for a voter file to be legitimate. In those lawsuits, including the one they filed here in North Carolina, the RNC was trying to actively throw out votes in advance of the 2024 election. So that wasn't successful anywhere, including here. So a federal judge decided for the North Carolina lawsuit that, hey, you brought this too late, right? We're too close to the election. You don't get to use this theory in 2024. So we all went and we all voted and we all thought we knew what the rules were. And then Jefferson Griffin, loser to Justice Allison Riggs, decided that he didn't think that the rules were quite so clear and that he wanted to run with this theory again. So that was November 2024. And that was when, after Justice Riggs won by 734 votes, Jefferson Griffin decided he was going to try to change that outcome by challenging 66,000 voters in North Carolina on this exact same theory. So even though a federal judge had already said, no, you all don't get to use this theory in 2024, he thought that he could get around that. He was wrong. And so in May of this year, right, this is when the federal judge threw out his case and said, nope, you don't get to use this theory this year either. The challenge has been that all of the wins that we got on these issues, which were big and important and necessary wins, were on what we call, right, as legal nerds, procedural, right? They were about when you filed the lawsuit and how close it was to the election and not being retroactive. And so we never actually got a federal court to say that this theory about voter files is wrong. And so Republicans are exploiting that fact and the fact that they were filing illegitimate lawsuits that meant that we never got decisions on the merits. And so they have decided that they are going to go ahead and go with this theory anyway. And so part of that was based off of decisions that were made by the state court with our Republican judges in our Court of Appeals and on our Supreme Court, and then the newly Republican-controlled majority on our State Board of Elections. And so now what we have and what was created in June 2025 was the Registration Repair Project. And so what the board did with this project is they launched a public portal. It has a searchable list. This is public. It's a government website, so nobody can accuse it of just being some like secret Democratic plot or list. And that list initially launched with about 103,000 voters in North Carolina who were going to be told that their registrations were incomplete. That list has started shrinking. Partially because of work that y'all have done that we'll talk about, but also because county boards and election staff are doing the work to try to fix the holes in this data where they can. In August, at the end of August, the board sent out a letter to 82,700 voters telling them that their voter file was incomplete and telling them that they would not be able to vote a regular ballot the next time they showed up to vote. Another letter is going to be sent in December. But this is basically the entire process that the board is taking on in order to talk to voters, educate voters, and help them repair this problem that the state board essentially made up. And so here's why it matters for voters, and here's why we've been doing so much work to try to educate voters and to reach out to them. When voters on this list next show up to vote, they are going to be required to cast what's called a provisional ballot. And it won't matter if they're voting on election day or during early voting. A provisional ballot is a ballot that should get counted after an administrative review process. And so essentially, voters will show up to vote this fall or for the primary or next year, and then they will be told, oh, you're on our list of people whose voter registration files are incomplete. You're going to need to go over to that corner over there, to that help desk. You're going to have to fill out a ballot, put it in this envelope, and fill out a whole bunch of extra information, put it in this locked box, and then wait to find out whether or not your ballot is going to get counted after the 14 days after Election Day, which is called the canvass period. You can imagine that for a lot of these voters, many of whom have been voting for a long time, this is going to be an incredibly disconcerting, problematic experience, right? It's going to create confusion. It's going to create uncertainty. It's going to be really discouraging for people. And so for these people, right, for the voters on this list, we're needing to make sure, right, that they know what to do and how to fix it, because they might have to go through some potential hoops and processes based on what's going on. So there are 3 things that voters can do to update their voter registration file before they next vote. So the DMV portal online is where you can update your voter registration. So you can walk through the whole process of interacting with the chatbot in order to add in one of these 2 numbers to the voter file. Voters can also take the letter that they should have received from the State Board of Elections, and they can mail it to their county board. The letter did include pre-addressed and stamped envelopes. You just had to make sure that you didn't throw it out and think it was junk mail when it came. And then the last option that voters have is going in person to their county board of elections with their driver's license or with their social security number and fixing this issue in person, right? All of these processes, right, have their pros and cons, but at the end of the day, they are better options than kind of the final catch-all process, which is just show up to vote provisionally, and hope that the process works the way it's supposed to. Now, we have a whole cohort of amazing volunteers who go to county boards of elections, watch these processes, and will be doing everything possible to keep this process accountable and transparent, but it's still putting faith in a process that we don't have control over, and where even under the best of circumstances, human error is always going to be possible. And so that's why we are not just trusting the kind of automatic processes and the passive sort of outreach by the state board. So starting in August, we started phone banking to the voters on this list. And from then to now, over 129,000 calls have been made. I am sure that many of you here tonight have been making those calls and have been part of that process. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that and to talk to voters and educate them and walk them through the process. In late August, so the same week that the letter to the voters from the state board was supposed to be showing up in their mailboxes, we sent out over 25,000 texts to the voters to let them know, hey, here's a picture of this letter you're going to get from the state board. It's not junk mail. It's actually really important. Please make sure that you open it, fill it out, and send it back in. And so now we're on the 3rd phase of our outreach process. And that is going to be actually just knocking doors and going face to face with these voters to tell them, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what you can do. And really showing them that the Democratic Party is here to look out for people's voting rights and isn't just showing up when we are asking people for something like a vote or a donation. This is about having a Democratic Party that is, committed to democracy. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah O'Brien, who is going to share the mechanics of how the volunteering is going to work and what that experience is going to be like.
Thank you, Kat. All right, well, we are really excited about 2 upcoming statewide days of action to help folks repair their registration. And those dates are going to be September 20th and September 27th. I'm going to spend the rest of my time talking about what that looks like and how you can get involved. So the canvas for registration repair is going to look a little bit different than canvases you may have done for a candidate or a campaign. Most notably, the turfs are going to be pretty small. Usually we ask you to knock over 30 doors in your 2-hour shift. This time we're going to be asking you to knock between 3 and 14 doors in like a 2 to 3 hour shift. The reason for this is because the turfs are pretty far spread out. Unfortunately, this is kind of random, and so the doors aren't close together or walkable, so you will be driving more than you usually would for a canvas. The plus side of this is that you can bring in a friend who doesn't necessarily feel comfortable indoors, but would be happy to drive along with you and spend an afternoon chatting between doors. And I think it's a great way to get folks who maybe are a little bit nervous or shy about canvassing involved. We're also going to be talking to Friendly Doors, right? So we are mostly focused on folks that we believe are voters for Democrats. So these should be good conversations with people who are happy to see us. And our experience on the phones and in the text messages that we sent was that for the most part, people didn't know this information. Now, we did a lot of these phone calls before the letter came out, but for the most part, folks weren't aware of this list, and we're grateful that we were reaching out. So we expect to have a lot of good conversations that'll help folks navigate what is a confusing and possibly upsetting situation. Similar to that, we're going to take a slightly different mindset than we usually do when we are trying to canvass for a candidate or a campaign. We always are trying to reach the voter that is on our list, but we're going to do a little bit extra this time to make sure we connect with them, or to attempt to connect with them. So we'll have a handwritten, we'll have a printable note that you can handwrite, or you can just leave a regular old handwritten note behind, letting them know that you were there to talk to them about their voter registration. If the voter isn't home, but you talk to a family member or a roommate who is living there, we're going to explain the situation to them and try to explain why we're there and why we need to reach their housemate. You can consider calling or texting that voter if you have phone information in Minivan on the details tab. And if your turf is close to your house or you have time at the end of your shift, you could consider circling back and doing a second pass to voters who weren't home the first time to try to reach them. So we're going to go above and beyond with these smaller turfs to try to make sure that we really connect with folks. There are two ways to participate in the statewide day of action, which is what's going to make it truly statewide, right? So for most of North Carolina, in most of the parts of the state, if you want to participate, you're going to join us through our virtual field office. Because we canvass using Minivan, we can launch canvasses from our computers, and you can launch from home and go right to your turf from there. And that's going to be the case for most folks in North Carolina, most volunteers. There are a few counties that are going to launch their canvasses in person. Their local Democratic Party is going to lead the charge and have an in-person canvas launch. If you live in one of those counties, we encourage you to go to your in-person canvas launch. The folks who are launching that canvas are going to have all the list numbers for the voters that we need to reach. So if you try to show up to the virtual field office, we won't be able to give you one. The folks who are doing in-person canvas launches are listed on this slide. So on September 20th, there will be in-person launches in Alamance, in Buncombe County, in Chatham, Cherokee, Craven, Dare, Durham, Guilford, New Hanover, they're actually doing it on the 21st, Pender, and Scotland. Everywhere else on September 20th, you'll be joining us through the virtual field office. And don't worry, you don't need to hunt down the link for your county. If you go to ncdp.org/knock, that's going to give you all the links for all the counties. So that's the only link that you need. If you are going to canvass on September 27th and you're in one of these counties, you'll be launching in person. So that list is Chatham, Cherokee, Cleveland, Craven, Davidson, Guilford, Moore, New Hanover, always on the Sundays, and Pender County. So on the 27th, if you're in those counties, launch in person. Everywhere else, again, we're going to be running the virtual field office. And the virtual field office has 3 shifts a day, every couple hours. So you'll have lots of options. That's your schedule. So what is it like to launch from a virtual field office? This might be the first time, but almost inevitably, this will not be the last time. So this is a good test run for processes we might want to use in the future for CURE, for example. So you're going to sign up, hopefully tonight, for your Canvas shift. You're going to keep an eye out for an email that will have a recorded training link. Okay, it's a 16-minute recorded training. You can watch it whenever it's convenient for you. And I hope you pay attention, because we will be sending out a quiz to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the most important information about this canvas. At the start of your shift, you're going to log onto Zoom, and the link will be in the same email that had the recorded training. All right, at the start of your shift, you're in Zoom. You'll come in just like today. The welcome room will be the lobby. And then there are going to be a couple of different breakout rooms. There's going to be a help desk. So if you had a question after watching the training or you have a problem with your minivan, there'll be an opportunity to ask those questions and resolve any issues that you have. And there are going to be multiple breakout rooms with a Canvas captain. And your Canvas captain will ask you where you're located. They're going to look up the closest minivan list number available, the closest turf to you. And they're going to give you a list number to put into your minivan app. And you're going to get the list of names of folks that you're going to reach that day. And then you're going to head out. So you'll leave from your house to go to the first door on your turf. If you have a printer at home, we'll have a black and white plain paper printout that you can use to fill in the key information. If you don't have a printer, that's okay. It's optional. You can just sort of leave a handwritten note behind instead. And then if you're out in the field and you have questions, you're going to have lots of resources to draw on. You will have a Canvasser manual, which has a lot of the frequently asked questions, the how-tos, the links, all of the things that you might need to reference quickly. If the manual doesn't have the information you're looking for, there'll be a help desk number that you can call into. And then at the end of your shift, assuming no time-sensitive questions, your Canvas captain will check in with you to see how things went and see if there were any questions that you needed to talk about at that point. And then we're going to ask you to sign up to do the next one. So these canvases, I'm really excited about them. The conversations with voters have been so great so far. And it's really a way to make a difference in folks' perception of voter protection in North Carolina, and to see that the party is actively working to make sure that everyone has a smooth voting process and their votes count this fall. So we're open for questions. Please sign up for a Canvas at ncdp.org/knock. You'll have all the links there, and then you'll get all the information that you need to feel ready to go. And with that, I guess we can open it up for questions, Kat.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So yeah, if you have questions about the processes, Sarah will make sure to answer those. If you have questions about kind of like the law and the context here, I answered some in the chat, but I do want to specifically share some of those answers with the whole group. So got the question of, during early voting, you're allowed to register, you're allowed to update your registration. Why will voters not be able to just do that here? The why is inexplicable. It's just because the state board said so. So we specifically asked the state board, will voters be able to go during early voting, update the registration right then and there, and then cast a normal ballot? And we were told no. So some of that is because of concerns with, potentially having poll workers treat the registration updates as duplications, and so not being careful enough about the data. But that is why, and you all will get this in your trainings for the canvassing, we have tried to ask as many questions as we can possibly foresee so that you all have the very specific information to give to the voters. So wanted to mention that one specifically. All right, let me go through all of this. So Sarah, we have a question. Can we get a turf without doing the training Zoom?
No, we will give you the turf once we know that you are fully ready to have that conversation. And the reason why is that we want to make sure we are giving out the best information and correct information to every voter. And so the training is really concise. We're not going to draw it out. But we do want to make sure that you have the information that you need to answer their questions accurately and to help them repair their registration.
Yep. Yeah, same. If you are currently working on a political campaign, absolutely, you can still do this. And we will also be reminding folks when we're doing the canvassing, which you'll see in the materials, that hey, one of the reasons you should probably update your registration is because there are municipal elections going on, and you should probably care about those. And so this is also a really great time, again, to be doing good work, helpful work for voters that connects back to people feeling positively about the Democratic Party overall, hopefully leading to them voting for our Democratic candidates.
Hey, I just see Isabel Geffner signed up, and she immediately got the email with links to the manual and the training video. And her question is, should she watch it now or on Saturday? So Isabel, don't do it now because you're on the Zoom with us, but once you log off, you can do it now. You want to do it before your shift starts. So our goal is for everybody to be pre-trained at the start of their virtual launch, because that'll mean that your time is spent out in the field rather than in a training.
In terms of the materials that you all are going to get, it does include the background of how we got here. So yes, I see, question in the chat, most voters have no idea that this has happened, right? Most people do not have the capacity to like follow the Griffin Riggs lawsuits and to like know everything that's going on. So the script includes that background context for y'all if voters want to know. Not all voters want to know that level of detail and that background information, right? Some of them just want to figure out like, why are you here? Okay, cool. What do I need to do? So that'll be up to kind of your discretion and how the conversation is going, but you will have that information.
Kat, I saw a really important question in the chat. Can we just register voters at the door if we turn in our in the forms to the BOE, and it would be not a duplication but a correction? So can you use a regular voter registration form to update their registration?
So no, that is another thing that we are being told is not being recommended by the state board and is being not recommended, is being discouraged by the state board. And here I do actually see a little bit of their point. So when folks update their registration, and they send in the form to their county board of elections, county boards will check to see, right, what new information is on here if it is a change to an existing voter registration file, which means usually they're just looking for an address change, right? Like looking for an address change, maybe a name change. And so if the, underpaid and vastly overworked staff at a county board just kind of get out of the blue a voter registration form, look at it, and they don't see the right changes in those kind of obvious places, there's not a guarantee that they're going to know to look to find the driver's license number or the last four digits of a social security number. And so for that reason, the state board is telling people not to simply mail in a new registration form. And we are not encouraging you all to collect forms. In fact, you all are being told not to do that. This is something that voters should be doing themselves, which is a little counterintuitive. It is National Voter Registration Day, and there are plenty of opportunities to register new voters and to help them with that. For this particular canvas, for this particular effort, we're being very focused on talking to these voters, giving them the precise information that we've been given from the state board, and making sure that we're not potentially misinforming them. Okay, what else?
I'm seeing some folks wondering if they can only canvass on one day or the other. That might be a county that has one in-person day, but you can always use the virtual launch option for the other weekend. So if your county is launching in person on the 20th and then you want to keep going on the 27th, but you're not doing it in person, come to the virtual field office. We'll get you a number really quickly and get you out on doors. So the folks who have already done it once can skip the training and all the hoopla and get you out really quickly. I also saw that question, like the shifts in Vote Builder or in Mobilize are 5 hours, which feels like a lot for a canvas, but that is meant to include about 2 to 3 hours of canvassing, and then travel time and training on the other ends. So we kind of want you to block off enough time to get your turf done, but it won't be 5 hours of canvassing time.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Margie, I see you have a question. Can we take the time to help them go through the process right there? Absolutely. And that is also in your materials and will be in the training as guidance. If the voter wants to ask like, hey, can I grab my phone or my laptop and like do the DMV chatbot, you can sit there with them and help them navigate it, right? The process, we've gone through it. It's fairly intuitive if you know how to kind of interact with chatbots. And so it does seem to be working, right? But not everybody's equally comfortable with that. Same thing, right? If they're like, oh, I think I have that letter, let me go grab it. You can absolutely sit there and kind of walk them through and explain it. The thing we're avoiding is kind of you all sharing using your own phone to do it. You're not filling this information out yourself. There are some potential like liability concerns with that come from voter registration rules and laws. So we're just making sure that the voter themselves is kind of leading the effort on filling out the forms and submitting them. But you can absolutely stay there and talk with them and walk them through it and watch them press submit. So Sarah, we have questions about the inclusion of unaffiliated voters. Can you talk about the targeting and kind of how we identify the folks that we're going to be talking to?
Yes. So the folks on our list are folks who our data suggest are voters for Democrats. And that is whether they are registered as Democrats or as unaffiliated voters. Our data indicate that they are voters for our candidates. And the folks that we're reaching on doors in particular are, for the most part, very consistent voters. These are the people who are most likely to be voters in these local elections. So that's why we wanted to reach them first. Our phone banks included voters for Democrats kind of regardless of how often they vote, because we could reach more folks on phones and text. The canvases are sort of the highest turnout, highest support folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which definitely means like we are actively trying to get first at the folks who are likely to vote in the municipal elections, right? And we're also making sure that we are wrapping this particular effort of canvassing up before we head into the true October and November candidate-based canvassing. So you all will be hearing again from us in like December and before the primaries. So, but right now we're making sure that we are really targeting the voters who most need to get this information in front of them before the municipal elections in October and November.
I saw a question, what is the recommended deadline for updating registrations in time to vote? I understand it needs to be before they go to vote, but is there like a deadline?
Yeah, so there is no deadline, and the state board has also not shared any data on kind of what the timeline seems to be. And honestly, some of that would be really, really difficult to get. The general recommendation is several days. So 3 to 4 days beforehand would be good. The good news is though, you can submit, right, that registration update in the file. If it isn't processed before the voter goes to vote, then they'll cast a provisional ballot, and that should get sorted out by the counties by the time the final vote count is done. So not ideal, right? Not ideal for the voters' experience to, go through the process of submitting the paperwork or the form or the chatbot, and then to still have to cast a provisional ballot. But if it's about 4 days in advance of them voting, it should be okay, is what we're being told. But we're monitoring it. And if it ends up being longer than that, we'll let you know. Yeah, but I see Judy, for collecting forms could cause a challenge. Yeah, so we're not collecting the forms from voters. We are telling the voters about the forms. We are showing them where they can find it, but this is not a form collection process. Okay.
I think we've answered the majority of the questions that I'm seeing, but I see a couple hands. Chris, are you able to unmute yourself? Not sure if we enabled that setting.
Yes, I can unmute myself. We have done a lot of talking to our voters in Watauga County, and we have marked a lot of them, like with the ones that are moved, deceased, and ones that are hostile, et cetera. And I'm wondering if there's some way we can pull our own turf, with our own data, because I think we have a better chance of getting to those people and being able to talk to them. We have a small number in Watauga that we'd have to go after, and so I think it would be much easier to do that. And is there a way we can set that up?
Let's talk tomorrow. I know y'all are canvassing powerhouses up there. It raises the question of why are we centralizing this process, right? I know the sort of a core value of NCDP organizing is localizing, right? Tailoring the scripts, tailoring the literature, making sure we're talking about sort of the most local candidates every time we go out to talk to voters. Voter protection organizing is a little bit different. And the reason why we're centralizing this is there's a couple of reasons. One is so that we have consistency with messaging and consistency with what we're saying to folks. The other is so that we have all of the information in a centralized place. And Kat can probably talk more eloquently and more in depth about what we might need this information for. But part of it is that we really need to be able to know what work was done and what impact we've been able to have.
Yeah, voter protection, canvassing, voter protection, chase and cure, the stuff that we do in this space has to be fully buttoned up on the legal side of things. We're usually dealing with a lot of voter communication, right? That has to be precise because one, we don't want to get it wrong and accidentally give bad advice, and we don't want to break faith with voters by tailoring things too much in a way that ends up making the information that we're sharing incorrect or even slightly inaccurate. So a lot of that is why the messaging, right? It's like we've worked to make sure we're getting all the precise questions answered by the State Board of Elections, that we are really focusing in on what we have been told is the appropriate way of handling all of this. And then, like Sarah said, there's a lot of data tracking that is important for us to be able to do because we live in a time of massive litigation all the time, right? And so we can't guarantee that we're not going to see more litigation in the future. And having one place where we know this voter, right, was talked to on the phone, this voter was, was in a turf that was cut for canvassing and they were home and a conversation was had. Being able to track all of that means that we are better able to make strategic decisions about what's happening in individual counties, but also plan statewide strategies to make sure that we have the litigation planning and strategy that we need both before elections so that we are kind of ready from day one after elections. So I hope we don't have a Jefferson Griffin 2.0 next year. I'm not betting on that, right? It's like we are actively planning for this, what we've experienced this last year, to become the new normal. And so that means a lot more coordination with the party. So I fully own that, like most things, the stuff about this process y'all might not like, it's probably the lawyer's fault. Just so happens that the lawyer is me. And I fully own that. But these are also us practicing with this process to make sure that we have a good system in place for municipal chase and cure in November, and then again for next year. Because as many of you might know, right, we used to be able to have 14 days for chase and cure. We don't have that anymore. We have 3 days. We don't even get a single weekend, right? Which means that these processes are going to get much faster and much more streamlined. Your all's individual emotional intelligence and your relationships in your community are going to come out in how you talk to people and how you approach folks, even though all the materials and that information is going to come from us. But hey, we will test it out, this process, and see what we can improve.
I see Vicky's hand up.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us this guidance. Thank you so much. Will we be able to print out the routes, the turf routes?
Sarah, you muted.
Yeah. We're going to distribute them as minivan list numbers.
Right. But if I'm in a rural precinct and sometimes we don't have internet access, and I also like to print out my turf in advance so that I can work on my route, because minivan has me going around we don't have blocks out here, but they have me going around in circles. Yeah. and it's just very helpful and more efficient if I can print it out.
Yeah, so there may be a situation where we can help you with that, and you might be somebody I can help with that. But for the most part, the lists are going to mostly exist in minivan, and that's partly because of just this distributed nature of the canvas. But I will say, for your first question about the rural broadband, if you download and this goes for everywhere, if you download the list at home while you're still at your computer, the list is in your phone and it won't get lost. So even if you have no service, what you're doing in the field is being recorded, and then once you're back in an area where you have service, it gets uploaded again. So so that should be feasible. Not everybody will be able to print out a turf map. But I agree with you that the next household feature on minivan is a place that they need to improve, because it can make you kind of crazy.
And since it's fewer than, it's maybe half a dozen houses, Yeah, I can just write down, I can look at minivan then and just write down those numbers. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Vicki. Stephen.
Now I can. Yes, this might be answered when I sign up. How are you dealing with the geography of this enterprise? I'm in Mecklenburg County. I have a precinct that I'm trying to learn. I actually know in my precinct who had a problem. So how have you dealt with the geography? Or let me put it in a more selfish way. Will I be asked to drive 50 miles?
We'll try not to. We're going to do our best. So the Canvas captains are going to be a mix of our regional organizing directors who know their regions very well and who know the state very well, and out-of-state volunteers who have come in to help supplement this to make it possible to reach more voters. So they will have a list of numbers, and they will have information sort of roughly about where each turf is in a county, and if there's a certain municipality, there's some help for them to find that. Our goal is for you to have a turf near your house. I can't guarantee it's going to be your precinct, but we're going to try to do our best to make sure that you launching from your house makes a lot of sense, right? And that's part of the reason why this distributed canvas is a wonderful tool for us to be able to use, because we can try to get you as close to your turfs as possible. I see a question from, I know I'm focusing on the hands right now. Are there questions popping up in the chat that need to be answered?
I think we've answered most of them. Y'all, if you have a question that hasn't been answered yet in the chat, drop it to the bottom of the chat if you wouldn't mind, because the chat moves and I might have lost track.
And Liz, you're muted.
Two questions. One is, can we just do the 27th and not do the 20th? And the other question is, if we are having trouble having 5 consecutive hours, can we put the 5 hours in but split it up?
Sarah, you're muted.
So I think the answer is yes to both. So you don't have to sign up for both days. You can sign up for one or the other. And if you don't finish your turf and you want to come back to it, the list will last for a little while. So if you take a list number and you don't canvas any doors, we'll probably assume you changed your mind and we'll reassign it. But if you've been working on that turf and you want to go back and do a few more like the next day, we won't be assigning it out, like reassigning it that quickly or sending a second pass out or anything like that.
Sarah, we have a question in the chat. Are people going out in pairs or solo? How's that being?
Yeah, it is up to canvassers' preference. A lot of folks like to canvas with a partner. So if you are launching from home, find your partner or have your partner come over before you launch and do the training together. Well, you'll do the training ahead of time. So you could either have your canvassing partner at your house already, and then you can launch from your house, or you can pick one person can get the list number and you can go pick up the second person. Because it is virtual, folks who want to canvas together should pair up on their own, or you should find your own partner. If you're in person and you want to partner up with somebody else who's on site, that's great. And if you feel comfortable going out, that's okay too. It's really up to you.
So I see a question. So what do we do if the voter, right, no longer has, right, the letter that the state board sent them, which is definitely going to happen. The letter that was sent, yes, it said it was official election mail, and yes, it like clearly said it was from the State Board of Elections, but it was still a piece of bulk mail that I'm sure many people just threw away. So unfortunately, that means that one of the 3 options is off the table. The State Board has not created like a template form that people can just print out for themselves. We have asked them to. If they make one and put it on the website, like we will update everything. But that means that the folks' options are to go through the DMV portal and do their update there, or to go in person to their county board of election. All right. Yes. So Naomi, I see your point. So on the DMV portal, so Only the last 4 digits of the social security number are required to be in the voter registration file, right? Or the driver's license number. The DMV portal does ask for the full social, like in the whole chatbot process. So thanks for flagging it. I will make sure that our script reflects that. And so question about whether there will be more canvassing in October. So not in October, and Sarah, if you want to jump in and talk about it. October is going to be very busy with canvasses, but for candidates. So we want to make sure that we are not taking away from all of the work that is necessary to get our municipal candidates over the line. And so we will pick up with this project again after the November election. So whether that looks like, late November and December, or whether that looks like, February before the primary, we'll decide. We'll have to see how the list changes and what we're still dealing with. This will also give us a chance to see at the county board level, how have they been handling the provisional ballots? If it turns out that provisional ballots submitted with this particular identifying issue on them do get counted, right, all across the state, then that's great. And it means that we can kind of adjust our concerns about whether or not that's going to be reliable. So we'll be reevaluating after it. But there will be plenty of opportunities for you to canvass in October, but it'll be for your municipal candidates who will be thrilled to have you. All right. See, Liz, is your hand still raised from before? Do you have a new question? And you are muted. Okay.
We have
Okay.
3 of us here that are listening, and so we kind of sort of do still have a question, and it just is, Mary, one of us got a list of 38 people, and there's only 3 of us, and we are pretty sure we'll have a hard time getting through it. So anyway, we're just figuring that you'll just redo all the lists on the 27th.
I'm not sure what list you may have gotten. I think none of our turfs are that big. So,
Okay.
So Mary, do you want to say something?
What list did you
No,
get,
I had
Mary?
asked at the beginning if how we could get a copy of the list, and I got a link
From the chat.
from the chat, and it had in our county, it had 38 people.
yes. So on the registration repair website, you can pull up the list of everybody that's on the list in your county. You can pull it up statewide, and you can search by name, but you can also easily pull the county. Now, the county is going to have everybody, right? They're going to have Republicans, they're going to have Democrats, they're going to have the unaffiliated. The lists we're giving you are a subset of that. We've done some matching in our voter file, our voter database, to make sure that we're focusing most on the voters for Democrats, and particularly voters for Democrats who are going to be turning out this election.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I think that does it.
Great. Pamlico.
Oh.
Is that Paula there?
Yes, sorry, it didn't
Hey.
want to unmute. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm getting all kinds of messages. So first of all, I think you answered this about canvassing outside of the 5-hour shift, that so long as there's been some activity on that particular turf, that it will remain open, so that, say, a person needed to go back over Sunday afternoon or wanted to pursue a person on Sunday afternoon, they could do so. And so that's not a problem. And my other, you've answered a couple of my other questions. I believe we were initially signed up as virtual. As a matter, according to your list, we are. Is it possible to change that?
I know you and Tony. Definitely
Yeah, we
more at the
missed you.
training.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's chat tomorrow. I know yesterday didn't work out. Let's chat tomorrow and figure it out.
Okay, that'll be
if there's
fine.
somebody who, yeah.
We're on board. We want to do what you need.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Yeah, if somebody signs up for a virtual and then the county, like if you end up deciding to do a in-person one, just send me that link and we'll get them all sorted out.
Okay.
Likewise, if that's a general thing. If you have signed up for virtual and your county is launching in person that day, we're going to contact you and try to sort it out. So don't stress too much about getting in the right place. We're going to help you get to the right place at the right time.
Okay. Do you want me to go to your calendar and set a meeting for tomorrow if you have an opening available, or do you just want to pop me an email or me email you again, or?
I will give you a call. I think I have your phone number at the top of my email box.
Okay, I'll stick it in the chat for you
Thank
if you need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The chat is telling us that Constance Stanton has had her hand up. So Constance, I just asked you to unmute. Are you able to do that?
Okay, so I'm actually not Constance Stanton, but I'm at her house.
Oh.
So, but I'm Carrie, and I have you on my phone also. So I am some say a voter has lost their letter, and I, as the contact person, have no idea how to do things like DMV portal helping, none. If they have trouble getting to the Board of Elections, they need to drive perhaps, if they need to be transported, is it appropriate to offer to help them get a ride to the DMV? Like I could take them myself at some point, probably with an additional person in the car. Is that odd?
So Sarah, I know that, Rise to the Polls and we do that kind of stuff. I don't have any automatic reason why you couldn't offer that. None of our volunteers should feel like they need to do that though.
No, I understand that. Yeah, it's just that I am really not, I have trouble with minivan even. But anyway, but I'm in Durham, so we'll have our group stuff too. Okay, thank you. And thank you, this is fabulous.
Well, thank you. We try to make sure that we give you all the information you need. All right, let's see. Going back to the chat. In the meanwhile, I see Scott, you have your hand up if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi. And like everyone says, this is great stuff, and thanks for all the hard work. If we go in a pair, do both people need to sign up, or if one person signs up and downloads the list, etc., can the other person just sort of tag along and and offer moral support and maybe talk a little bit as well?
So as an organizer, I want everybody signed up. But if somebody's riding in your car with you and they don't want to sign up, as long as one person has signed out the turf, we really need to know your name and your phone number, just so that if there's a change of anything and we need to reach you, we have a good number for you. But no, I mean, if somebody else rides along with you and they don't want to sign up, like that's okay.
Okay, fair
We
enough. Thank
prefer
you.
if they would, but
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
All right, Stephen, I see your hand up. Is it up from before? No, new question.
I'm unmute. Now I can. It takes a while. This question about the voter having lost their form, I still I don't know what to do. Is there and they don't have a DM, do I just tell them go to the DMV?
So not going to the DMV, they need to go to their county board of election. So they can always call their county board first to ask them, right? What they're going to need to bring and make sure that all that's clear,
Okay.
but they'll need to go to their
So
county.
we should have the address of the county board of elections with us.
You will have the link to the statewide search so that you can easily find it for your county.
Fine. No, I know it, but having it on a piece of paper written down is sometimes more effective than giving people who have failed a link.
Yeah.
Had a problem, a link. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for your patience.
Wow, absolutely. I did see one question that I do want to make sure to answer because there has been some confusion. So if you follow voter protection issues in North Carolina, you might have seen, right, talk of a decision for a cohort of voters who are going to be able to vote a regular ballot, even if they are missing some identifying numbers. Those are not these voters. There were two different lists of voters identified by the state board. The one that we're focused on, people who, don't have these numbers in their voter file. These voters are also voters who don't have record proof of doing what is called a HAVA verification. So there is a separate process by which you can verify that your identification, that you are who you say you are and you live where you say you live. And so there was a secondary list of people who did go through that process, and there are records of them having gone through that process, even though they are missing one of these two numbers. So there was a lawsuit that included both these lists, but there was a specific decision for those voters that they get to vote a regular ballot if they went through that secondary process, even though they're missing these numbers. Our voters who we are talking to, it doesn't apply to them, right? These ones are going to have to cast a provisional ballot. So I know it's a lot to try to track like all the different lawsuits around this. But just that yes, these are voters who do need to go through this process. We are not cross-contaminating from those two different lists. And if you want to follow along for voter update information, we have a voter voting rights newsletter for the NCDP, and I will drop that link into the chat. Yes, where I try to make sure that we are giving you all good information about all of the lawsuits and all of the things that happen. But yes. Fred, do you want to come off mute?
Okay. Yeah, hi. I got a list today, and I was wondering if it's going to update before Saturday. Will that be in minivan, or how will I know if the list has changed between now and Saturday?
Great question, Fred. So the list was refreshed this morning, so it is as up to date as we can possibly have it today. And it's set up much like we set up our lists during early voting, so that if somebody comes off the list between now and Saturday when you canvass, they will be excluded from the list that a canvasser puts into their phone. So the numbers won't change. It'll still say like 6 doors in Murphy. But when you canvass, there are only going to be 5 doors on there. So it's much like when early voting happens and the people who've already voted come off the list.
All right, so that changes the minivan, and we'll see it there. All right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Lee.
Yeah, as we wrap up here, Lee, I think you're going to be our last question for the night.
Yes, Kat, I kind of got lost when you were discussing Social Security numbers. Could you please go over when these voters need to supply the whole Social Security number versus when they're only required to give the last 4 digits?
So if the voters go through the DMV portal, so like the online chatbot, they will be prompted to submit their full Social Security number. So that's the only place where they would be asked for the full number. The forms itself are going to the County Board of Elections. It's not collecting those full digits.
One more time, forms going to the County Board of Elections are not collecting the full number.
Correct.
But
right.
The DMV chatbot is that safe?
So some data security nerdery. There are specific federal standards for entities that collect all 9 digits of a Social Security number. The NCDMV does follow those requirements and is authorized to do all of that, which is why they collect it. The State Board of Elections has not yet gone through that whole process of making sure that their data system is capable of doing all of that, which was part of the whole discussion when we were trying to make sure that these 9 digits were not asked for on voter registration forms. And so that's why there's that distinction. So yes, the DMV at the moment, right, and as best as we are all able to know, does have the appropriate standards in place in order
even if a voter is, even if I explain that to a voter and they're still skeptical, I can say, okay, then don't do it online through the DMV portal. Just go to the Board of Elections. They won't ask you for your full social.
Right. And they always have the option, right, of using their NC driver's license number instead. They don't,
Instead, okay.
Kat, I actually think that when you do it online, you need both.
they do both. You
Yeah,
are right. Thank you. I forgot that. Yeah.
it's
So
a real burden.
if they go in person, right, or they submit one of the forms, then they can just use their driver's license number instead. Yeah, the DMV portal does ask for like all of the things.
Okay, thank you.
And the material, the Canvasser handbook and the FAQ have links to like screenshots of what a voter would experience going online and using the chatbot. So that's a resource that you have to like look through beforehand.
And with that, thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you for signing up to go knock on these doors and help out these voters. It means a lot to them. Our phone bankers had good experiences overall. Other than the handful of people who are like, this is a scam. We're like, we swear it's not. We wish it were in some ways, but it's a scam on democracy. So thank you all so much. Thank you for volunteering and voting. You will hear from us in the future about more opportunities to do all of this. Y'all are truly superheroes. This is really great and important work that you all are doing. So thank you, and sign up and have a good rest of your night, everybody.